The letter arrived in Yerington, Nevada on a scorching afternoon in July 1878, and Harrison Hayes held it with hands that had roped cattle, broken horses, and built fences across miles of unforgiving land, yet now trembled like a boy's at the sight of delicate handwriting. He had written to the mail-order bride agency 6 months ago, half drunk and wholly lonely, never quite believing anyone would answer a weathered rancher pushing 30 with more scars than charm. But here it was, her acceptance, and she would arrive on the afternoon train in 3 days. Harrison reread the letter for the 10th time since collecting it from the post office, studying each word as if they might rearrange themselves into something different. Her name was Nora Dalton. She was 24 years old. She had taught school back east, though she did not specify where, and she hoped to find a peaceful life in Nevada where she might be useful and content. The words seemed carefully chosen, almost too carefully, like stepping stones placed with purpose across a rushing stream. He wondered what she was not saying. The ranch house had not seen a woman's presence in over a decade, not since his mother passed when he was barely 18, leaving him and his father to manage the property alone until his father followed her 4 years later. Harrison had spent the intervening years building the ranch into something respectable, expanding the herd, improving the grazing land, and constructing outbuildings that spoke of permanence rather than survival. He employed 3 steady hands who lived in the bunkhouse and respected his quiet authority, and together they had carved out a life that was comfortable if solitary. Now he walked through the house with new eyes, seeing the dust accumulated on surfaces he had stopped noticing, the spare functionality of rooms meant for living, but used only for existing. The kitchen held what was necessary, but nothing more. The bedroom upstairs contained his bed and little else, and the parlor stood virtually empty save for his father's old chair, and a table that held whatever mail or ranch documents required attention. It was the home of a man who had forgotten how to expect company. Harrison spent the next 2 days in a flurry of activity that amused his ranch hands to no end. He swept and scrubbed, purchased curtains from the general store that the proprietor's wife helped him select, borrowed a proper bed frame from a neighboring ranch to replace his simple wooden platform, and filled the house with small touches that might make a woman feel welcome. He bought wildflowers from a Mexican family that grew them in carefully tended plots and placed them in a pitcher on the kitchen table, then worried they would wilt before she arrived and replaced them the morning of her expected arrival with fresh ones. The train was due at 2 o'clock, and Harrison dressed in his cleanest shirt, brushed his dark hair back with water that dried almost immediately in the summer heat, and rode into town with his wagon cleaned and outfitted with blankets across the seat. His stomach churned with an anxiety he had not felt since childhood, and he reminded himself that she had agreed to come, had chosen him from whatever options the agency presented, and that he was a good man with a solid ranch who would treat her with respect and kindness. The train arrived 18 minutes late, which felt like 18 hours, and Harrison stood on the platform watching passengers disembark with increasing worry that she had changed her mind, that she had gotten off at an earlier stop, that the whole thing had been some terrible mistake. Then he saw her, and his breath caught in a way that surprised him. Nora Dalton stepped down from the train car with visible hesitation, one hand gripping a worn carpetbag and the other clutching her hat against a gust of wind. She was smaller than he had imagined, fine-boned and delicate in a way that seemed at odds with the harsh Nevada landscape. Dark blonde hair was pulled back in a simple arrangement, and her dress, though clean and well-maintained, had seen better days and many mendings. But it was her eyes that struck him most, large and cautious, scanning the platform with an intensity that went beyond normal nervousness. He stepped forward, removing his hat. "Miss Dalton, I'm Harrison Hayes." She turned toward him, and he saw her take in his appearance with that same careful assessment. Whatever she saw must have satisfied some requirement because her shoulders dropped slightly, tension releasing by some small measure. "Mr. Hayes, thank you for meeting me." Her voice was soft but steady, with an accent that suggested education and eastern cities. He reached for her bag, and she flinched before catching herself, then released it to him with a forced smile that did not reach her eyes. That small movement told him more than any letter could have, and Harrison felt something protective surge in his chest alongside his nervousness. "The wagon's just over here," he said gently, making his movements slow and predictable. "It's about a 40-minute drive to the ranch. I thought we might stop at the general store if there's anything you need, anything I might have forgotten to provide." "That's very kind," Nora said, walking beside him but maintaining a careful distance. "I'm sure whatever you've prepared will be more than adequate." They made small talk on the drive out of town, though calling it conversation would be generous. Harrison pointed out landmarks and explained the layout of Yerington, while Nora offered polite responses that revealed nothing. She sat rigidly upright, hands folded in her lap, and startled noticeably when the wagon hit a rut in the road. Harrison kept his tone calm and his movements gentle, treating her like one of the wild horses he sometimes broke, letting her adjust to his presence without pressure. The ranch appeared over a rise, and Harrison watched her face for a reaction. The house was modest but well built, 2 stories with a wide porch and real glass windows that caught the afternoon light. The barn and outbuildings were in good repair. Corrals held healthy horses, and in the distance, cattle grazed on land that stretched toward the mountains. It was not grand, but it was honest and earned, and he hoped she could see that. "It's lovely," Nora said, and this time her voice held genuine warmth. "Very peaceful. I'll introduce you to the hands later if you like, or tomorrow if you'd prefer to settle in first," Harrison said as he pulled the wagon up to the house. "They're good men, respectful, and they take their meals in the bunkhouse so you would not need to worry about cooking for them." "I don't mind cooking," Nora said quickly. "I want to be useful, Mr. Hayes. I don't expect to be a burden." He climbed down and came around to offer his hand to help her from the wagon, careful to extend it without crowding her. She took it briefly, her fingers cold despite the heat, and stepped down with practiced grace that spoke of a different life than ranch work. "You're not a burden," Harrison said firmly. "You're my wife, or will be once we see the minister. I hope you'll come to see this as your home and yourself as a partner here, not hired help." Something shifted in her expression, a crack in the careful control, and her eyes grew bright with unshed tears. She blinked them back quickly, nodding. "When do you wish to marry?" "Whenever you're comfortable," Harrison replied, picking up her bag. "The minister lives in town and can perform the ceremony whenever we like. Tomorrow, next week, next month. I'll leave that timing to you." Nora looked at him with surprise. "You would wait, of course. This is as much a leap for you as it is for me." "Maybe more, since you've come all this way to a place you've never seen." He led her inside, and she stepped through the doorway with visible caution, relaxing slightly as she took in the clean rooms and the efforts he had made. Her fingers brushed the curtains in the parlor, and she smiled at the wildflowers in the kitchen. "You did this yourself?" she asked. "With some advice from Mrs. Chen at the general store," Harrison admitted. "I've been living like a hermit for too long." The place needed a woman's touch, or at least my best attempt at guessing what that might be. "It's perfect," Nora said softly. "Truly." He showed her upstairs to the bedroom, setting her bag on the floor. "I'll take the spare room down the hall," he said, "until you're ready for other arrangements, or indefinitely if that's what you prefer." "I meant what I wrote in my letters, Miss Dalton. I'm looking for a partner and companion, someone to share this life with. I'm not looking to force anything." Nora turned to face him fully, and in the afternoon light streaming through the window, he could see shadows under her eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and the faint remains of a bruise along her jaw, yellowed with age but still visible if you knew to look. His hands clenched involuntarily and he forced them to relax. "You're very kind, Mr. Hayes," she said quietly, "kinder than you know. Harrison, please, and I'll call you Nora if that's all right." "Yes, that's fine." She paused, then straightened her shoulders as if coming to a decision. "I would like to marry soon, Harrison. Tomorrow, if possible. I know that might seem rushed, but I think it would be better to have things settled." He studied her face, seeing the determination there alongside the fear. "Tomorrow it is, then. I'll ride into town first thing and speak with the minister. We can go together in the afternoon." Relief flooded her features. "Thank you." Harrison left her to unpack and went outside to stand on the porch, breathing deeply of the evening air. The sun was beginning its descent toward the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and orange. Somewhere in the barn, one of his hands was singing a Spanish song his mother had taught him, and the cattle were settling for the night, their lowing carrying on the wind. It was the same scene he had witnessed hundreds of times, yet everything felt different now, charged with possibility and responsibility. That night, Harrison made dinner, a simple meal of beans and salt pork with fresh bread from town, and they ate together at the kitchen table with more comfort than their earlier conversation. Nora asked questions about the ranch, about his life, about Nevada and Yerington, and he answered as fully as he could, pleased to see her genuine interest. She had a quick intelligence and noticed details others might miss, commenting on the quality of his horses and the strategic placement of his water sources. "You know ranching," he observed. Nora's expression shuddered briefly. "I grew up on a farm in Pennsylvania, a long time ago." "What brought you west?" Harrison asked carefully. She set down her fork, her hands trembling slightly. "The advertisement said you wanted someone seeking a fresh start. That's true. I need a fresh start very badly, Harrison." Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "I need to be somewhere no one from my old life will ever look for me." He waited, not pushing, letting the silence stretch until she was ready to fill it. "I was married before," Nora said finally, the words coming out in a rush. "To a man in Philadelphia. I taught at a school there, and he was charming when we courted, attentive and kind. 6 months after we married, he became someone else. Or maybe he was always that person, and I had been too blind to see it." Harrison felt his jaw tighten but kept his expression neutral, not wanting her to stop. "He had a temper," Nora continued, staring at her hands. "At first it was just words, criticism, and insults making me feel small. Then it became more. He would grab me, shake me, push me against walls. Then came the hitting." She touched her jaw unconsciously. "I wore high collars and long sleeves and made excuses when people noticed bruises. I told myself it would get better, that I could manage him, that I had made vows." "How did you get away?" Harrison asked gently. "He died." The words were flat, emotionless. "There was a fire at his workplace, a factory. He was trapped inside with 17 other men. I know I should have felt grief, should have mourned, but all I felt was relief and shame at feeling relieved." "Relief is not something to be ashamed of," Harrison said firmly. "Not in your situation." "His family blamed me somehow, said my coldness had driven him to work too hard. They contested his small life insurance policy, and the legal battles dragged on for months. Then his brother started coming around. saying things, making threats. He was drunk most of the time, but I could see the same rage in him that had been in his brother. Nora's voice shook. One night he broke into my room at the boarding house where I had moved. I fought him off with a fire poker and ran. I've been running ever since. She looked up at Harrison, her eyes fierce despite their brightness with tears. I need you to understand what you are taking on by marrying me. His brother might come looking. I don't know if he will, but he might. I changed my name, used my mother's maiden name instead of my married name, but I'm still afraid. I'm always afraid. Harrison reached across the table slowly, giving her time to pull away, and covered her hand with his. Then I'll make you a promise right now, Nora Dalton. You'll never have to run again. You'll never have to be afraid in your own home again. If this man comes looking, he'll answer to me, and he won't like those answers. But more than that, I swear to you that I will never give you reason to fear me. I'll never raise my hand to you in anger, never belittle or hurt you. You have my word, and in these parts, a man's word is his bond. Tears spilled down Nora's cheeks, and she turned her hand over to grip his. How can you promise that when you barely know me? Because I know the kind of man I am, Harrison said. And I know the kind of man my father was, and his father before him. We Hayes men might be stubborn and quiet, might spend too much time with cattle and not enough with people, but we protect what's ours. And once we marry tomorrow, you'll be mine to protect, just as I'll be yours to depend on. Nora nodded, unable to speak, and they sat in the gathering darkness, hands joined across the table until the first stars appeared in the Nevada sky. The wedding took place the next afternoon in the small church at the edge of Yerington, with the minister's wife and Harrison's foreman, a grizzled man named Tom Sullivan, standing as witnesses. Nora wore her best dress, a blue cotton that brought out the color of her eyes, and Harrison wore his Sunday suit, brushed and pressed with more care than it had seen in years. The ceremony was simple and brief, but when Harrison slid the ring onto Nora's finger, a simple gold band he had purchased that morning, he meant every word of the vows he spoke. They returned to the ranch as husband and wife, and if there was awkwardness in that new reality, they navigated it with courtesy and care. Harrison continued sleeping in the spare room, giving Nora space and time to adjust, and they fell into an easy routine over the following weeks. She proved to be an excellent cook, far better than his simple efforts, and took charge of the household with quiet efficiency. She mended his clothes, tended a small garden behind the house, and began teaching Harrison to read better, something he had always struggled with despite his mother's best efforts. In return, Harrison taught her to ride properly, not the side-saddle Eastern style but the practical Western way that would let her cover ground and handle a horse in rough country. She learned quickly, her farm background serving her well, and soon she was riding out with him to check fence lines and water sources. He showed her the full extent of the ranch, the summer and winter grazing areas, the hidden valleys where springs fed year-round pools, and the high meadows where wildflowers bloomed in impossible profusion. "It's beautiful," Nora said one afternoon as they stood on a ridge overlooking the property. "I never imagined the West would be like this." "What did you imagine?" Harrison asked, honestly. "Dust and desperation, violence and chaos. Everything I read back east made it sound lawless and harsh." "It can be harsh," Harrison acknowledged. "The weather, the isolation, the sheer work of it all. But there's a freedom here too. A chance to be who you are without the weight of what you were, without the expectations and judgments of people who think they know better." Nora looked at him thoughtfully. "Is that why you stayed? After your parents died, you could have sold the ranch and gone anywhere." "This is my anywhere," Harrison said simply. This land, these mountains, this sky, it's in my blood now. I can't imagine being anywhere else." "I'm beginning to understand that," Nora said softly. As summer turned toward autumn, Harrison noticed changes in Nora beyond the physical health that came from good food and outdoor work. She smiled more easily, laughed at his stories about ornery cattle and stubborn horses, and began offering her own observations and opinions without the careful hedging that had marked her early weeks. The shadows under her eyes faded, and the haunted wariness that had characterized her movements began to ease, but she still locked her bedroom door at night. Harrison heard the soft click of the mechanism every evening and said nothing, understanding that trust was not given freely after what she had endured. He courted her in small ways, leaving wildflowers on the kitchen table, complimenting her cooking and company, sitting with her on the porch in the evenings to watch the sunset and talk about everything and nothing. In late September, a stranger rode into the ranch. Harrison was in the barn when Tom came to fetch him, his expression tight. "Boss, there's a man asking questions in town," described a woman matching Nora's description, asking if anyone's seen her. Harrison felt his blood run cold, then hot. Details. Eastern fellow, city clothes, mean eyes according to Chen at the store. Said he was looking for his sister-in-law, that she ran off after his brother died and the family was worried about her. Chen did not tell him anything, sent him toward Douglas County on a wild goose chase, but he'll be back. "How long do we have?" "Day, maybe 2 if Chen's directions were confusing enough." Harrison found Nora in the garden, pulling up the last of the summer vegetables. She looked up at his approach and immediately tensed, reading something in his expression. "What's wrong?" "There's a man in town asking about you, from Philadelphia, looking for his brother's widow." The color drained from Nora's face, and she dropped the basket she was holding. "He found me." "He found Yarrington," Harrison corrected. "He has not found you, and he's not going to. But I need you to tell me everything about him. His name, what he looks like, anything that might help me recognize him." "His name is Nathan Turner. He's tall, taller than you, with dark hair and a scar through his left eyebrow from a bar fight. He dresses well but drinks too much, and when he drinks, he gets mean." Nora's voice was shaking. "Harrison, he swore he would kill me. The night I fought him off, he said if I ever told anyone what he tried to do, he would hunt me down and kill me, make it look like an accident." "He'll have to go through me first," Harrison said grimly. "And I'm not easy to go through." He called his hands together and explained the situation in broad terms, that Nora's dead husband's brother was making threats and might come looking for her. To their credit, none of them questioned or judged. Tom immediately volunteered to ride the property lines, and the other 2, young men named Jack and Peter, said they would take shifts keeping watch. "She's the boss's wife," Tom said simply. "That makes her ours to protect too." That night, Harrison moved his things into Nora's room, not to pressure her but to position himself between her and any threat. She did not object, and when they lay in the darkness, separated by feet of space but sharing the same room, she spoke quietly. "I'm sorry I brought this to your door." "You brought yourself to my door," Harrison replied. "Everything else is just something to deal with. We all have pasts, Nora. Yours just has sharper teeth than most. Aren't you afraid?" "Of a drunk from Philadelphia who thinks he can come west and threaten my wife? No. I'm angry, but I'm not afraid." "He killed a man once," Nora whispered. "Back in Pennsylvania. Everyone said it was self-defense, but I heard his brother talking about it when he was drunk. It wasn't self-defense. Nathan started the fight and finished it, and he was proud of it." "Then I'll be careful," Harrison said. "But I won't back down, Nora. This is our home, our life. No one gets to take that from us." Nathan Turner appeared at the ranch 3 days later, riding in on a rented horse from the town stable, his city clothes dusty from travel, and his face flushed with drink, even though it was barely past noon. Harrison was ready for him, standing on the porch with his rifle held casually but unmistakably present. "Can I help you?" Harrison asked, his tone neutral. "I'm looking for a woman," Nathan said, his words slightly slurred. "Nora Turner. Her husband, my brother, died, and the family wants to make sure she's all right." "There's no one here by that name." Nathan's eyes narrowed. "I heard you took a mail-order bride. Eastern woman, blonde, about this tall." He gestured vaguely. "Sounds like my sister-in-law to me." "My wife's name is Nora Hayes, and she's from Ohio originally, been west for years." "You've got the wrong place." "I'd like to see her, confirm that." "No," Harrison said flatly. "You'll take my word and ride out, or we'll have a problem." Nathan's face darkened. "You don't know who you're dealing with." "A drunk making threats on my property," Harrison replied. "I know exactly who I'm dealing with. Last chance to leave peacefully." Instead of leaving, Nathan reached for the gun at his hip, a movement slowed by alcohol and overconfidence. Harrison had his rifle up and aimed before Nathan's gun cleared leather. "Don't," Harrison said, his voice cold. "I'm a fair shot sober and you're drunk in the middle of the day. How do you think this ends for you?" Tom appeared from the barn, his own rifle in hand, and Jack emerged from the bunkhouse with a shotgun. Nathan looked at the three armed men and seemed to finally grasp his situation. "She's a whore who got my brother killed," Nathan spat. "She deserves what's coming to her. The only thing coming is the marshal from town, who I'll be sending for if you're not gone in the next 60 seconds, Harrison said. "And if you ever come back here, if you ever threaten my wife again, they won't find enough of you to bury. That's not a threat, that's a promise. Now ride." Nathan glared at them with impotent rage, then wheeled his horse around and galloped off, nearly falling from the saddle as the animal lurched into motion. They watched until he was out of sight, and Harrison finally lowered his rifle. "Tom, ride into town and let the marshal know what happened. File a formal complaint if you can. I want it on record that he came here making threats." "You got it, boss." Harrison found Nora inside, standing at the window with tears streaming down her face. "You faced him down. You sent him away." "I told you I would protect you," Harrison said, setting the rifle aside and opening his arms. After a moment's hesitation, Nora walked into them, and he held her while she cried, feeling her shake with relief and reaction. "I was so afraid," she sobbed. "So afraid he would hurt you, that you would send me away to avoid trouble, that everything would fall apart." "The only thing falling apart is Nathan Turner's plans," Harrison said firmly. "You're my wife, Nora. This is your home. No drunk from Philadelphia gets to change that." She looked up at him, and something had shifted in her expression, the last walls crumbling. "I know we married for practical reasons, for convenience and companionship, but Harrison, I need you to know that somewhere along the way it became more for me. You've been nothing but kind and patient and strong, and I find myself caring for you in ways I never expected." Harrison's heart hammered in his chest. "Nora, I've been halfway in love with you since you stepped off that train looking scared and determined at the same time. I did not say anything because I did not want to pressure you, did not want you to feel obligated, but if you're saying what I think you're saying." "I'm saying I love you," Nora said clearly. "I'm saying I want this to be a real marriage in every sense. I'm saying I'm not afraid anymore, not of you, not in our home. You showed me what a good man looks like, Harrison Hayes, and I'm grateful every day that I answered your letter." He kissed her then, soft and careful, and she kissed him back with growing confidence, her arms wrapping around his neck. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard and smiling. "We should probably thank Nathan Turner," Harrison said wryly, "for making me clarify my feelings." Nora laughed, the sound bright and genuine. "Let's not go that far." That night, Harrison did not sleep in another bed, and the locked door stayed open. The marshal came out to the ranch the next day, a stern older man named Bill Crawford who had known Harrison since childhood. He took down the details of Nathan's visit and threats, then shared some news. "Your man Turner got drunk at the Silver Spur last night and started bragging about how he was going to come back out here with some hired guns, teach you a lesson about getting in his business. Made enough of a scene that I locked him up for public intoxication and disturbing the peace. This morning, when I questioned him sober, he admitted to following your wife from Philadelphia, said some things about her that were not fit for repetition." "Is he still in your jail?" Harrison asked. "For another 2 days, then I'm putting him on the eastbound train myself and making it clear he's not welcome in Nevada. I spoke with the judge, and based on his threats and his record back east, which I wired about, we can ban him from the county. If he comes back, he'll be arrested on sight." "His record back east?" Nora asked. "Seems Mr. Turner has a history of violence against women, multiple complaints filed, though charges never stuck because of his family's influence. But out here, his family's influence does not mean anything. Out here, a man threatening a woman earns him a cell and a one-way ticket home." Relief flooded Nora's face. "Thank you, Marshal Crawford. No thanks needed. We take care of our own out here, and you're one of ours now, Mrs. Hayes." After the marshal left, Harrison and Nora stood on the porch, watching the autumn sun paint the mountains gold. She leaned against him, and he wrapped an arm around her waist, marveling at how natural it felt, how right. "I really don't have to run anymore," Nora said wonderingly. "I can stay here, make a life, be happy." "You can walk beside me," Harrison said. "Through everything that comes, good and bad, we'll face it together." She turned to kiss him, and in that moment, with the Nevada wind carrying the scent of sage and freedom, they both understood that they had found what they had been searching for, even when they had not known they were searching. The winter that followed was harsh, with snows that blocked roads and temperatures that dropped below zero. But inside the ranch house, warmth and love kept the cold at bay. Nora proved to be a partner in every sense, working alongside Harrison during difficult births in the barn, helping to break ice on water troughs, and keeping the household running smoothly, even when supplies from town were delayed by weather. Harrison, in turn, showed her the beauty of winter in Nevada, taking her on horseback to frozen waterfalls and snow-covered meadows where the silence was so complete you could hear your own heartbeat. They grew closer with each passing day, learning each other's habits and preferences, arguing occasionally but always finding their way back to understanding and compromise. In the spring, Nora discovered she was pregnant, and Harrison's joy was so complete that he picked her up and spun her around the kitchen until she laughingly demanded to be set down. He became simultaneously more protective and more nervous, hovering until she firmly told him she was pregnant, not fragile, and to stop treating her like blown glass. "Women have been having babies since the beginning of time," she reminded him, amused by his worry. "And I'm healthy and strong, thanks to good food and outdoor work. This baby will be fine, and so will I." But he still made sure she did not overwork, taking on the heavier chores himself and enlisting the ranch hands to help with household tasks when needed. Tom's wife, Maria, came to stay for the last month of the pregnancy, providing company and experience that eased both Harrison's and Nora's nerves. Their son was born in November 1879, during the first snowfall of the season, entering the world with a lusty cry that announced his healthy lungs to anyone within earshot. Harrison held the tiny, red-faced bundle with wonder and terror, sure he would somehow break this perfect, fragile creature, until Nora laughed and showed him how to properly support the baby's head. They named him Henry, after Harrison's father, and he became the center of their world without diminishing their love for each other. Harrison had worried that a baby would change things between them, but instead it seemed to deepen their bond, creating a family unit that felt complete and right. As Henry grew from infant to toddler, the ranch prospered. Harrison expanded their cattle operation, brought in better breeding stock, and began selling beef to mining operations in the surrounding mountains. Nora kept the books, her education and head for numbers making her invaluable in tracking expenses and profits. Together, they were building something that would last, something they could pass on to their children. They had 2 more children over the following years, a daughter named Hope in 1881 and another son named Daniel in 1883. The house that had once echoed with loneliness now rang with laughter and the sounds of children playing. Harrison built additions to accommodate their growing family, added a real dining room and a larger kitchen, and converted the spare bedroom into a nursery. Nora transformed from the frightened woman who had stepped off the train into a confident rancher's wife, respected in Yerington for her kindness and fair dealings. She started a small school on the ranch, teaching not only her own children but also the children of ranch hands and neighboring families, fulfilling her love of education while serving the community. Harrison watched her teach one afternoon, sitting at the back of the room they had converted for this purpose, and marveled at the change. She commanded the attention of a dozen children ranging from 6 to 13, making lessons engaging and accessible, patient with slow learners and challenging for quick ones. This was the woman she had been meant to be all along, he realized, before fear and violence had tried to diminish her light. As if feeling his gaze, Nora looked up and smiled at him, and he smiled back, still feeling that flutter in his chest that her attention brought. 10 years of marriage had not dimmed his feelings. If anything, they had grown stronger, deepened by shared experiences and the life they had built together. One evening, after the children were in bed and they sat on the porch watching the stars, Nora spoke quietly. "I never thought I could be this happy. After everything that happened in Philadelphia, I thought I was broken somehow, that I would never feel safe or loved or capable of loving someone fully." "You were never broken," Harrison said firmly. "Hurt, yes, traumatized, certainly, but not broken. You just needed time and space to heal, and maybe someone who could be patient enough to let you heal at your own pace." "You gave me more than that," Nora said, taking his hand. "You gave me back myself. You showed me that I was worthy of respect and kindness, that love did not have to hurt, that I could be a partner rather than a possession. You saved my life, Harrison, in every way that matters." "You saved mine too," Harrison replied. "I did not even realize how alone I was until you arrived and showed me what I had been missing. This ranch was just a place to work and sleep before you. Now it's a home, filled with love and laughter and purpose beyond just survival." They sat in comfortable silence, hands joined, while the Nevada night spread above them in a canopy of stars. Somewhere in the distance, cattle lowed peacefully, and closer by, horses moved in their corrals with soft wickers and the stamp of hooves. It was the sound of their life, ordinary and precious, hard-won and deeply cherished. Years continued to pass, bringing changes and challenges as all lives do. There were droughts that tested their resources, hard winters that took a toll on the livestock, and the constant work of maintaining and improving the ranch. But through it all, Harrison and Nora faced each obstacle together, their partnership strengthening with each test overcome. Their children grew healthy and strong, each developing their own personality and interests. Henry proved to have his father's affinity for animals and land management, following Harrison around the ranch from the time he could walk and absorbing lessons about cattle and horses with enthusiastic attention. Hope inherited her mother's love of learning and her father's quiet determination, becoming an avid reader who nonetheless could rope a calf and ride as well as her brothers. Daniel, the youngest, had a gift with horses that amazed even seasoned ranch hands, able to calm the most fractious animal with patience and intuition. In 1890, when a new schoolteacher was hired for the growing town of Yerington, Nora was offered a position as headmistress, overseeing the education program and training new teachers. She accepted with Harrison's full support, balancing her work in town with her responsibilities at the ranch, and somehow making it all look effortless, though Harrison knew the effort it actually required. He supported her ambitions as she had supported his, understanding that a partnership meant lifting each other up, not holding each other back. When people in town made comments about a rancher's wife working outside the home, Harrison shut them down with a quiet firmness that made his position clear. Nora was not just his wife. She was her own person with her own talents and dreams, and he would defend her right to pursue them as fiercely as he would defend her physical safety. The ranch continued to prosper, becoming one of the most successful operations in the region. Harrison's reputation for fair dealing and quality stock spread, and buyers came from as far as California to purchase his cattle and horses. He hired more hands, built better facilities, and invested in improvements that would ensure the ranch's viability for generations to come. But success never changed the core of who they were or what they valued. Every evening, no matter how busy the day had been, Harrison and Nora made time for each other, sitting on the porch or in the parlor, talking about their days and their dreams, maintaining the connection that was the foundation of everything else. They taught their children by example what a loving partnership looked like, how respect and communication and unwavering support created a relationship that could weather any storm. In 1895, a letter arrived at the ranch, forwarded through several addresses before finding Nora. It was from a lawyer in Philadelphia, informing her that Nathan Turner had died of liver failure, a result of years of heavy drinking. There was no one left of that family to threaten or judge her. She was finally completely free of that shadow. Nora read the letter twice, then handed it to Harrison. "I thought I would feel something," she said. "Relief, maybe, or vindication, or even sorrow for a wasted life. But I feel nothing. He's just a stranger now, someone from a life that seems like it belonged to another person entirely." "That's because you've moved so far beyond who you were then," Harrison said. "You're not that frightened woman running from violence anymore. You have not been her for a very long time." "No," Nora agreed, looking around at the ranch, at the life they had built, at the sound of their children playing in the yard. "I'm Nora Hayes, rancher's wife, mother, teacher, and partner to the best man I've ever known. That other person, that other life, it's just a story now, something that happened a long time ago to someone I used to be." She burned the letter in the kitchen stove, watching the paper curl and blacken, releasing the last hold that past had on her present. Harrison stood beside her, his hand on her shoulder, and together they watched it turn to ash. That summer, they took their children on a camping trip into the mountains, spending a week away from the ranch under the stars, fishing in cold streams and hiking through meadows carpeted with wildflowers. Around the campfire one night, with the children sleeping in their bedrolls nearby, Nora leaned against Harrison's shoulder and spoke softly. Thank you for giving me this life. We gave it to each other, Harrison corrected. I brought the land and the home, but you brought the love and the laughter, and the sense that all this work means something beyond just existing. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I had not answered your letter? Nora asked. If I had chosen a different advertisement, gone to a different place? Sometimes, Harrison admitted. Usually when I'm counting my blessings and realizing how close I came to missing out on the best thing that ever happened to me. But then I think about fate and timing and how some things are just meant to be. You were meant to come here, Nora. We were meant to find each other. I believe that too, she said. Even through all the pain and fear that brought me here, even through everything I had to survive to get to that train platform, I believe it was all leading me to you, to this life, to becoming who I was always meant to be. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the fire burn down to embers while above them, the Milky Way stretched across the sky in a river of light. Tomorrow they would return to the ranch, to the work and responsibilities that awaited, but tonight they simply existed in the moment, grateful for each other and the family they had created. As the years continued their steady march, Harrison and Nora grew older together with grace and continuing devotion. Their hair grayed, their faces lined with the marks of years spent squinting into the sun and laughing together. But their love remained as strong as the day they had made their promises in that small church in Yerington. Henry took over much of the day-to-day running of the ranch, as Harrison's joints began to stiffen with age. But Harrison remained involved, offering advice and perspective earned from decades of experience. Hope became a teacher herself, taking over her mother's position when Nora finally retired. And Daniel started a horse breeding program that became renowned throughout Nevada and beyond. All 3 children married and had children of their own, filling the ranch with grandchildren who called Harrison and Nora by the affectionate names Grandpa Harry and Grandma Nora. The house expanded again to accommodate family gatherings, and holidays became joyous, chaotic affairs with multiple generations crowding around extended tables, sharing food and stories and love. In 1912, on their 34th wedding anniversary, Harrison and Nora sat on the porch watching the sunset, a ritual they had maintained throughout their marriage whenever weather and circumstance permitted. Harrison's hand found hers, the gesture as natural as breathing after so many years, and she laced her fingers through his with the ease of long practice. "You remember what I promised you the night you told me about your first husband?" Harrison asked. "You made several promises that night," Nora replied with a smile. "Which one specifically?" "That you would never have to run again, that you would only walk beside me." "I remember. You kept that promise, Harrison. Every single day of our marriage you've kept it." "You kept yours too," he said. "To be my partner, to share this life, to face everything together. We've had a good run, haven't we?" "The best," Nora agreed. "Better than I ever dreamed possible when I stepped off that train, scared and alone and hoping for nothing more than safety and peace. You gave me those things, but you also gave me love and purpose and a family and a life rich beyond measure." "I love you, Nora Hayes," Harrison said, the words as heartfelt as the first time he had spoken them. "I've loved you for 34 years, and I'll love you for however many more were granted." "And I love you," Nora replied. "My cowboy, my protector, my partner, my best friend. Thank you for being exactly who you are, for seeing me when I felt invisible, for believing I was worth saving when I had stopped believing it myself." The sun sank below the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple and gold, and they sat together in the gathering darkness. Two people who had found each other against all odds and built a life that was a testament to the healing power of love, patience, and unwavering commitment. Their story was not one of grand gestures or dramatic rescues, though it had begun with elements of both. Instead, it was a story of quiet devotion, of showing up for each other day after day, of building trust brick by brick, and creating a foundation strong enough to support not just themselves but generations to come. It was a story of a woman who had run from violence finding a place where she could finally stand still, and a lonely man discovering that the empty spaces in his life could be filled with laughter and love and purpose. Harrison and Nora Hayes lived into their 80s, a remarkable age for their time and place. And when Harrison finally passed in his sleep in 1918, Nora held his hand and whispered her love and gratitude for the life they had shared. She followed him 18 months later, having lived to see the end of the Great War and the beginning of a new era, but more importantly, having lived to see her children happy and settled, her grandchildren thriving, and the ranch she and Harrison had built together continuing strong into a new generation. They were buried side by side in the small cemetery outside Yerington, their graves marked with simple stones that bore their names, dates, and a single shared inscription chosen by their children, "Together always." The ranch remained in the family, passed down through the generations, each inheritor adding their own contributions while maintaining the core values of hard work, fair dealing, and unwavering family loyalty that Harrison and Nora had instilled. The story of the mail-order bride who confessed she had run from violence, and the cowboy who vowed she would never run again, became family legend, told and retold to children and grandchildren as an example of what love could be when built on respect, patience, and genuine partnership. It was a reminder that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is trust again after being hurt, and that true strength lies not in never falling, but in having someone who will always help you stand back up. In the decades that followed, as the Wild West became history and Nevada changed from frontier territory to modern state, the legacy of Harrison and Nora Hayes endured. Their descendants continued to work the land, to value education and integrity, to understand that family was both a responsibility and a privilege. The house they had filled with love and laughter remained standing, expanded and modernized but retaining the heart of what they had built, a testament to two people who had found each other when they both needed finding and created something that outlasted them both. Their story was not unique in its elements. Many mail-order brides came west seeking new lives, and many cowboys took wives from afar in hopes of companionship and partnership. But the specific alchemy of Harrison and Nora, the particular way their strengths and vulnerabilities complemented each other, the depth of understanding and respect they built together, these things made their story special, worth remembering, worth telling to each new generation as an example of what was possible when two people chose to build rather than destroy, to heal rather than harm, to walk together rather than stand alone. The mail-order bride had confessed she had run from violence, carrying scars both visible and hidden, fearing she might never be safe or loved again. The cowboy had vowed she would never have to run again, promising protection and partnership with a sincerity that went bone deep. Harrison had been right that day on the ridge when he told Nora that the West offered freedom to be who you are without the weight of what you were. She had proven it by transforming from frightened refugee to confident partner, from victim to survivor to thriver. And Nora had been right when she told him he had given her back herself. Because sometimes the greatest gift one person can give another is not protection or provision, important as those are, but simple, unwavering belief in their worth and potential, the kind of belief that allows someone to believe in themselves again. Their children carried those lessons forward, teaching their own children the importance of kindness and strength, compassion and determination, understanding that these qualities were not contradictory but complementary, that you could be both gentle and fierce, both peaceful and protective, both loving and strong. The Hayes family became known for these qualities, for raising children who treated others with respect, who worked hard and dealt fairly, who understood that character mattered more than wealth and integrity more than influence.